I realized my supposedly dead father was standing right beside me, but everyone around me insisted that he was just my father's twin brother. They told me over and over that my dad had died, but deep down, I knew I wasn't wrong. Every time he came home, I'd run to him and call him dad, only to be coldly pushed away, and told I had mistaken him. Even my mother admitted that he looked exactly like my father, but since my father was declared dead, she had no choice but to accept it, and decided to raise me on her own. 3 years later, on a rainy night, my mom overheard a conversation between Grandpa and Uncle. That was when she finally learned the truth. The one who died 3 years ago was actually my uncle, and my father had taken his identity just to care for my pregnant aunt. He had faked his own death and fooled all of us. My mom was heartbroken, but she couldn't understand why a man who had loved her so deeply would deceive her like this. Since Dad's death, she had refused to return to the city with my wealthy grandmother, choosing instead to stay in the countryside and live the rest of her life as a widow, only to realize it was all a lie. Seeing me wake up, she hated my father even more for making her child grow up without a father's name. I looked at her sad face and immediately asked, "Did Dad pretend not to know us again?" That was the moment she finally understood why I had been calling my uncle Dad for the past 3 years. She had thought it was grief, but I had known the truth all along. Over the past 3 years, my father chose to care for his sister-in-law and her daughter, and abandoned my mom and me, even when I wanted a leftover chicken drumstick. His sister-in-law would scold me harshly. She would rather throw it on the ground than let me have a bite. My mother and I had no one to rely on, until today. She finally decided to end this relationship built on lies. She called my grandmother in the city and agreed to remarry. She decided that after honoring my father's death anniversary in 3 days, she would marry the boy next door, who had always been her childhood friend. The next day at lunch, my mom watched my dad, still pretending to be my uncle, lovingly serving chicken to his sister-in-law's daughter, while I could only eat plain rice in silence. She was chilled to the bone, so she told Grandpa she wanted to go to the department store tomorrow to buy offerings for Dad's memorial. Dad instantly got nervous. He said he and his sister-in-law also needed to shop, and insisted on going with us. Before my mom could say no, I spoke up. For the first time, I didn't call him Dad. I politely called him Uncle. His face froze. He asked uncertainly what I just called him. I told him that I was just a clueless child before, and had mistaken my uncle for my dad. But I wouldn't make that mistake again. He instinctively wanted to confess, but Grandpa stopped him, so he changed his tone and said, "That is my uncle." It was only right to look after us. Unexpectedly, my mom drew a clear line. She said since he wasn't my real father, he no longer needed to concern himself with our lives. Then she took my hand and left. The next day, my mom took me to the department store. I instantly fell in love with a red wedding dress in the window. My mom also wanted to buy dowry items for her wedding in 3 days, so she tried on the red dress for me to see. The moment she stepped out of the fitting room, I gasped and covered my mouth. Even the sales lady said that the dress looked like it was made just for her. My mom smiled at her reflection in the mirror and bought it on the spot, but as we turned around, we ran into my dad and his sister-in-law. He asked where she was going. My mom replied coldly, "You're just his brother. You have no right to question me," then walked away with me. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The boy next door sent his assistant to pick us up. My mom got into the car without hesitation, heading to the wedding venue. My father, recalling his cold attitude the night before, felt ashamed, so he brought gifts to apologize, only to find the room already empty. He looked around, confused. Then he noticed a spool of red thread on the sewing machine. He remembered me suddenly calling him Uncle, Mom's distant expression, and the wedding dress we bought, all of it added up, and he finally realized my mom really was getting remarried. Panic set in. He ran into the street searching for her. He bumped into a villager who said the rich boy from town was getting married today. To a widow, my dad realized immediately the bride was likely my mom. He jumped on the villager's bike and raced toward the hotel at the wedding venue. When the groom lifted my mom's red veil, her breathtaking beauty stunned everyone into silence.